Hello guys, we're going to talk about a mystery drama film called Berlin Syndrome from 2017. A lot of interesting things are waiting for you. Claire is a young Australian tourist. She comes to Berlin to see the sights of the city. Staying in a cheap hostel, she spends the night on the roof with a group of young people who have also come to the new city. The next day, Claire walks the streets of the city, looking around the shops. She even buys some small souvenirs for herself, and afterward she goes to the library to look through the art books used in Berlin. On her way back to the hostel, she encounters a young man at a traffic light. He speaks calmly in English and even offers the stranger a strawberry. The young man seems attractive to Claire, and she agrees to go with him to the house where his father grows these berries. As they walk among the beautiful houses and gardens, Andy tells her about his childhood and how he and his parents had fun in a small and cozy house. Then he asks about the reasons why she decided to visit Berlin. Claire tells him that she used to work in a real estate company as a photographer. At some point, she wanted something more and decided to photograph the architecture of Germany. After spending the whole day together, the young people go home. Andy offers to meet again, and the girl agrees. Despite the fact that Claire had planned a trip to Dresden, she decides to stay and not go anywhere. The very next evening, the couple ends the night in a rather interesting way. In the morning, Andy goes to work. He teaches English at a school. After work, a colleague invites him to go to a bar, but he refuses and says he is going on a date. Meanwhile, Claire is forced to stay in the apartment all day because the door won't open from the inside, and Andy didn't leave the keys. In the evening, the young people go to a club and then spend the evening having fun again. In the morning, the girl asks him about the key, and Andy says that it is hidden on the dresser. After that, he hurriedly leaves for work. Claire lays in bed for a long time, but still begins to slowly look around the apartment. Her attention is drawn to an art magazine. Looking through it, she finds a picture between the pages. In this photo, she sees a naked woman's shoulder with a word written on it. For some reason, this inscription caused the girl to feel anxious, and she immediately ran to the mirror. The exact same inscription appeared on her shoulder. Frightened, she hurries to the door, but of course the key doesn't fit. The windows are also locked. There is no SIM card in her cell phone. Claire tries to escape by breaking a window, but finds that the windows are double glazed and cannot be broken. Andy is back from work and he acts as if nothing is happening. He gives her flowers and offers to cook dinner together. All the questions Claire asks, the young man simply ignores. The girl gets very angry and attacks the guy, and he is forced to tie her to the bed. He tells her that no one will hear her because the apartments in this building are abandoned. The next day, Andy has lunch with his father. The father hears from his son about Claire and asks him about his previous relationship. He assures him that Natalie has returned to Canada. The father expresses his surprise because the young man only dates tourists. Upon returning home, Andy unties Claire so that she can take a shower and have dinner. Sitting in the bathroom, she notices blonde, long hair in the drain hole. She realizes that she is not the first victim here. The captive girl spends the night tied to the bed again. In the morning, Andy frees her from the ropes and goes to work. He hides the key in a box with a combination lock, which he keeps on the outside of the apartment above the door. After making sure that the boyfriend is left for work, Claire begins her quest. She manages to find a screwdriver, which she immediately hides. In the evening, Andy returns home and finds the girl assembling the puzzle he brought her the day before. The captive behaves very quietly and reservedly, pretending to be very happy to see the young man back. When the moment is right, Claire sticks a screwdriver into Andy's hand, snatches the keys from him, and quickly runs out of the apartment. But of course, she doesn't manage to leave the courtyard because the boyfriend catches up with her. He injures the girl's arm and carries her back to the apartment. A few days later, Andy's student shows up on the doorstep. She tries to confess her feelings to him, but suddenly she sees Claire wrapped in a towel in the hallway. The girl is embarrassed by what she sees, and Andy sends her away, assuring her that they can have nothing in common. He even threatens her that he will tell her parents about this visit. Only then does the girl leave. The days go by very miserably, and Claire's life is still spent in prison. A young man continues to film her with Polaroid, forcing her to strike very strange poses. He cuts off locks of her hair and generally acts distant. A few weeks later, Andy learns of his father's death. Overwhelmed by grief, he stays at his father's house for a week, trying to process his loss. Snow has already fallen outside, and Claire, locked in the apartment, is forced to warm herself with the fireplace, which is almost out of wood. She is also running out of food, so she eats what she can find. Her strength is almost gone, as she is very hungry and cold. When Andy finally returns home, Claire feels relieved, and even something like grateful. After all, she thought that the young man had left her forever, she learns about his father's death, she comforts Andy, and they end up in bed together again. From that day on, Claire's mood begins to improve. She willingly does housework, bakes pies, and even learns to play the accordion. At Christmas, sitting in the living room, she asks her boyfriend why he chose her. Andy admits that she is perfect for him, and he has never felt anything like this before. Later, he gives Claire a gift. He gives her a book and a dog that his father used to have. The girl cannot hold back her tears of joy, because now she has a real friend. Right after Christmas, Andy takes a girl into the woods, planning to eliminate her. However, he is interrupted by a little boy. He runs up to the couple and asks them to help his brother, who has twisted his leg. While the young man examines the injured child, Claire whispers to the boy to call for help, but the boy does not understand English. Deciding that there are too many witnesses around, Andy takes the girl back home. On New Year's Eve, he goes to visit Peter. They work together at the school. When fireworks are going off in the street, Yana shows her guest too much attention. He takes it as an insult and immediately tells the girl about it. She asks him to leave their house immediately. Claire, meanwhile, notices a man in the yard. She manages to get his attention, and he immediately comes to the door. But Andy immediately eliminates him. He forces Claire to help him wrap the man's body in plastic, then drag him out of the house and dispose of it. A few more weeks pass. An announcement about Claire Havel's disappearance appears in the newspapers. Andy sees the article and doesn't pay much attention to it. One evening, he checks his student's work and sees that the girl has burned her hand. He goes to the room to get some medicine, not noticing that Claire is putting something in the student's notebook. In the morning, Andy goes to work, but before he does, he turns off the electricity and water in the apartment. We realize that the young man decided to abandon the captive girl in this way, leaving her to her fate. Meanwhile, Andy is handing out the students' homework books. When she opens a page, she sees a photo of Claire tied up. She remembers seeing this girl in her teacher's apartment. Trying not to give herself away, the student asks for permission to leave the classroom. She gets on her bicycle and rides towards the house. However, the student did not notice that the picture fell out when she got up from the desk. Her classmates immediately saw it and began to discuss it lively. Andy realizes that he has been exposed. He gets in his car and drives to his home. The student manages to free the captive girl, and they hide together in the uninhabited apartments of the house. With all her will, Claire manages to lure Andy into the apartment and lock him in. Resigned to his fate, the young man sits down in a chair and starts laughing, because he could not have foreseen such an outcome. Meanwhile, Claire gets into a taxi and drives away. Driving through the streets of Berlin, she breathes in the air of freedom she has been deprived of for so long.